Hello, Ender Sword here again, this time with Game 3 of the exioN versus SCA Clan War. We've got SCA BowmanSX over here on the bottom left-hand side of this map. Our Protoss player, he is actually now on a 2-game win streak, has his clan up 2-0 in this clan match, and we'll see how he does against his opponent, exioN's Quonzar here in the right-hand side of the map, our Zerg player. Bowman's certainly been doing pretty well so far. Seems to have adapted his builds a lot for the Heart of the Swarm. We saw in Game 1, if you haven't checked that out, a really nice Oracle play going on there, and we'll have to see how he does against this Zerg opponent on a 2-player map here. Will make things interesting. The third base on this map is definitely a lot more exposed, and you kind of have some other options with the third. You can kind of go up here, but you're getting a fair distance away in terms of defensibility, but it may be better off than the much more open third. There is a bit of a choke here on either side, but a bit hard for Protoss players to wall off adequately, so we'll see what he does opt for here. We got the spawning pool first for Quonzar, and I think both of them, a few people have mentioned during this a bit of FPS stutter during this, so I don't know whether it's maybe BattleNet itself that's having the problems or what it is actually going on, but hopefully not affecting the games too much. Our Protoss player going for the single pylon with the awesome new skin on it, and then just going right for the Nexus before even going for the Forge, which this ramp is actually fairly large to be walling off. So given that there was the spawning pool first there, you kind of take a bit of that calculated risk that you can get away with this. The distance between the two bases is not exceptionally large. It's certainly not an overly large map. It is a 2-player map, so I don't know what he really saw to say that I could get away with this, particularly with the spawning pool down. But there are ultimately only 2 Zerglings coming out here, so this will go rather uncontested. He must have it timed out. I obviously don't really know with the new builds what sort of timings you do need in order to get this adequately walled off and be safe, but BowmanX may have something in mind there and feel that it is in fact safe on this map with some of the timings that he did see. So the Nexus does complete there. That hatchery almost up, and the third hatchery, which will be out front, is going down there now. So again, both players going for a very economic type game on this, and so we'll have to see how that does develop. Zerg grabbing control of that single watchtower here, which really is in an interesting position. The way the map feels, it's almost bent around this single point, that there are a lot of bases kind of, sorry, I said single watchtower, but that's kind of the one that's in the way. There is a second one here for the secondary bases, but you're not going to get a whole lot of traffic willing to go all the way around there until a bit later in the game. Any kind of early play is pretty much going to go through the middle, so you do want to have control of that, unless of course the play is going to be airplay that is going to obviously come through this type of route here. So we do have the overlords in place trying to spot if there's anything kind of coming in that direction, but we're a bit of a ways away from that for our Protoss player. No Stargate or anything indicating any sort of airplay at this point. Not going ahead with any upgrades early in the game here, opting to spend gas on things like sentries, but there's a fair bit of money there piled up at the moment, so instead just kind of opting not to do that. May have an idea what he is going to throw down behind this, and we do see double Stargate, obviously very gas intensive behind this. He has taken both gases at both bases fairly early to have both on your natural at this point, but obviously everything in this is kind of focused on having that gas out and making sure that it is available. The Overlord is going to come in and see that these Stargates are up. 3 gateways going down as well. Overlord has a great idea of what is going on in this base. The question is whether or not Quonzar is going to be able to tell what to do with that. At this point, there's definitely a lot of ways that this could go, and he is even able to see that double Phoenix is what's going to be coming out of there. Very often you see the Oracle type play coming out, but that's not going to be the case here. Instead, the Phoenix that will try and get a little action and harassment done throughout the map, and we'll have to see how that develops, particularly given the extent of early warning that our Zerg player has, getting spore crawlers up just all over the place. There's not going to be a whole lot of places that these Phoenixes can get a lot done. There's not even overlords throughout the map. He has pulled back a few of them. He did have enough warning to even get them out of this type of position and pull them back to the main bases where they're going to be defended. So not going to even be able to harass them in that sense or supply block them or anything like that. We've got Zealots coming in behind this, again with the cool new skins on them. And the one thing that is, I guess, missing here a bit is any form of an army. It looked like there was so much emphasis placed on the Stargates that as the Zealots come in, these roaches, usually good against Zealots, but there's just a much bigger number for them as the Phoenix do come in, trying to pick up the individual roaches. Certainly not great against that type of unit. They tend to be better, obviously, against light units. Mothership Core coming in, but does kind of get boxed out by the Spore Crawler and the Queens, and the Stalkers coming in a bit late to do anything. Now we're getting some roach numbers out. Now we're getting some lings following this, and this early aggression is going to be pushed back, and we see a fairly large supply lead by Quonzar. But this is all a ground army, and we've got a lot of Stargates out here. 3 Void Rays out. He's probably going to be able to get this base up just on the fact that there's nothing that can shoot air. He's not going to be able to attack into this at all. He's probably not going to be able to do much to this wall either. He's going to try and make a poke up here. See if a force field does go down a little late. There finally does get it down. Attacking, deciding to target fire down this Nexus despite having so many Void Rays, despite having the Mothership Core in place. The Mothership Core did get picked off, or the first one gets picked off at the 3rd base of our Zerg player, so it didn't have enough for the Photon Overcharge, but does ultimately defend that Nexus for a good number of losses from our Zerg player. If he was able to actually snipe that off, certainly would have put our Protoss way behind, but instead we can see that he's stabilized to a point that is a lot more reasonable for this point in the game. You do expect to be a decent supply behind, 20, 30 behind at this point, and just kind of ramp up later in technology and supply. The Hydra's coming out now to try and deal with some of that air, which is getting a little big. We do have 5 Void Rays out now, but no continued production out of these Stargates at this point. 6 now out onto the map. They do pull in, but is 6 going to be okay against this number of Hydras? And we do get, I'm a little surprised, no Photon Overcharge on the Nexus. I do think he had the energy to actually do that, but ultimately didn't get it down. But still, the Nexus does live. Only 142 hit points is going to get a bit of shield regen here now, but the Nexus is still alive at this point in the game. The one thing that does work out for the Zerg is, despite a couple little Zealot harassments here, there's not a whole ton of potential that the Protoss army is going to move across the map at this point. There's a lot of anti-air. We know that he can go into Hydras, which are going to be really fast on creep. There's Queens out. There's Spore Crawlers out. It's going to be hard for that to make any sort of push in. He's clearing out some of these proxy pylons which were providing some of that continued harassment out on the map. And we'll get this fourth base secured, moving some drones up. It looks like they did a bit of a pause there. Obviously, there's some observers in the game as well, so maybe some of them were kind of causing the problem, cross leaving the game, and they do let that settle, and hopefully that's going a little more easily for the players. Now, this area, though, just looks like a bit of a fortress at this point. There's a lot of anti-air. See what the Hydras do. When they do get under that, they can just melt through these Void Rays, but the Void Rays have this little overcharge ability. But he's just canceling them off the map at this point. The Archon's coming out, I feel, a bit late there. If they were out a bit earlier, they could have obviously made a little mincemeat out of that wall of Hydralisks, forced them to change target, but again, not great against just that fast damage from Hydralisks. They just shred through pretty much anything, unless you've got, say, Colossus out to deal with that type of army, or a lot of charge lots to really confront them head on. Even with that extra damage from the Void Rays, you're definitely going to be in a bit of trouble. And one thing about this new Sky Protoss type army is once you've lost that bulk, it's really hard to replenish that. So that was a lot of Void Rays, and besides the initial cost of replacing them, it takes a lot of time to replace them. They were building up over the course of like 8 to 10 minutes pretty much throughout this game, and it's going to take a long time before that number can get out on the map and do anything really effective, and he just doesn't want to be spending that type of gas, particularly with the third base going down. These guys out there being a little bit brave probably know that they're not going to be able to defend that on their own, do pull back a little bit, and trying to get a lot of, again, the ultra cool Zealots out, coming in at a bit of a back angle. Storm going down, not going to be too effective against the Roaches. The speed on the Hydras helping out so much in this expansion that they can actually pull out of something like a Storm now, that they can actually charge forward and get under some of the air army, and the Zerg is just looking a little out of control here. Quonzar is just kind of mass Hydra here. Doesn't even need a lot of that ground bulk that you usually would because of the Hydras. Because they're so squishy, you very often need a lot in front of them, but given that this was a largely air army, there wasn't a whole lot of Zealots underneath that. There's not really a lot of Stalkers or anything underneath it. Not even a lot of sentries that are there to box them out or prevent them from rushing forward. Just going with this mass Hydra, pure damage is just kind of melting everything. Even as those Zealots charge in, usually great against Hydras, they're just able to plow through them, given the waves of them. And Bowman does call the good game, and Quonzar takes the first match for exioN. Score is now 2-1 in favor of SCA. Quonzar will be continuing on, and we'll get into game 4 here now.